Bubonic Plague, Black Death. The bubonic plague, infamously known as the Black Death, is one of the most devastating pandemics in human history. It ravaged Europe, Asia, and North Africa in the 14th century, leaving a trail of death and despair. This script delves into the origins, spread, symptoms, societal impacts, and eventual decline of the Black Death, presenting a vivid picture of a time when humanity faced one of its greatest existential threats. 1. Origins and early spread. The story of the Black Death begins in the arid plains of Central Asia. Here, in the mid-14th century, a deadly bacterium known as Yersinia pestis lay dormant within fleas that infested the fur of rodents. It was only a matter of time before these infected fleas found their way onto merchant ships, carried by the bustling trade routes of the Silk Road. By 1347, the plague had reached the trading city of Kaffa on the Black Sea. From here, it spread rapidly through the ports of the Mediterranean. The disease moved with terrifying speed, reaching Sicily in October of that year. Within months, it had spread to mainland Italy, and by 1348, it had swept across Europe, leaving no region untouched. The spread of the plague was facilitated by the movement of armies, traders, and pilgrims. The overcrowded and unsanitary conditions of medieval cities provided the perfect breeding ground for the disease. As it spread, the death toll rose exponentially, and panic began to grip the populace. 2. Symptoms and progression. The symptoms of the bubonic plague were as terrifying as its rapid spread. The initial signs included fever, chills, headache, and fatigue. Soon after, painful, swollen lymph nodes known as buboes would appear, typically in the groin, armpit, or neck. These buboes turned black, a harbinger of the death that was soon to follow. The disease did not stop at the bubonic stage. In many cases, it progressed to septicemic plague, which caused internal bleeding and blackened extremities, giving the disease its ominous name, the Black Death. Some victims also developed pneumonic plague, which attacked the lungs and spread through the air, making it even more contagious and deadly. The mortality rate was staggering. Infected individuals often succumbed within days of the first symptoms. Medieval medicine, rooted in superstition and a limited understanding of disease, was powerless against this invisible killer. Bloodletting, herbal remedies, and prayer offered little to no relief, and the death toll continued to rise. 3. Societal impact. The Black Death did not discriminate. It struck down the young and old, rich and poor alike. Entire families were wiped out, and the social fabric of medieval Europe began to unravel. With death lurking around every corner, normal life ground to a halt. Fields went untended, and cities emptied as people fled in vain attempts to escape the pestilence. The sheer scale of death overwhelmed the capacity to bury the dead. Mass graves, or plague pits, became a common sight. Bodies were often left to rot in the streets, further contributing to the spread of the disease. The stench of decay and the constant tolling of church bells marked the omnipresence of death. Fear and desperation led to social unrest and scapegoating. Many believed the plague was a punishment from God, leading to widespread penance rituals and flagellation. Others blamed marginalized groups, such as Jews, lepers, and foreigners, resulting in brutal persecutions and massacres. 4. Economic and cultural consequences. The economic impact of the Black Death was profound. With a significant portion of the population dead, labor became scarce, leading to higher wages for workers and a shift in economic power. The traditional feudal system began to weaken as serfs demanded better conditions or fled to cities in search of opportunities. The cultural and psychological impact was equally significant. The omnipresence of death and the collapse of societal norms led to a sense of nihilism and hedonism among some, while others turned to deep religious piety. The art and literature of the period became obsessed with themes of death and the afterlife, as seen in the macabre imagery of the Danse Macabre and the haunting verses of the Decameron. Despite the horrors, the Black Death also led to some positive changes. It forced advancements in medicine and public health, as societies sought to prevent future outbreaks. Quarantine measures, public sanitation, and the development of hospitals were some of the early steps toward modern medical practices. 5. Decline and legacy. By the early 1350s, the Black Death had begun to subside, but not before it had claimed an estimated 75 to 200 million lives. The exact reasons for its decline are still debated, but factors such as changes in climate, improvements in public health practices, and natural immunity likely played a role. The legacy of the Black Death is enduring. It profoundly reshaped European society, leading to economic, social, and cultural transformations that set the stage for the Renaissance and the modern age. The memories of the plague were etched into the collective consciousness, serving as a grim reminder of humanity's vulnerability to disease. Today, the bubonic plague remains a sobering chapter in human history. While modern medicine has largely tamed the threat of Yersinia pestis, the lessons of the Black Death continue to inform our responses to epidemics and remind us of the importance of vigilance, science, and compassion in the face of global health crises. Conclusion. Narrator: the bubonic plague, or the Black Death, was a catastrophe of unimaginable proportions. It decimated populations, reshaped societies, and left an indelible mark on human history. As we look back on this dark period, we gain insight into the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring quest for knowledge and survival in the face of overwhelming odds.